We are joined on the Mixed Morning Show by Brianna Seewald. Good morning, Brianna.
Good morning.
So your accident that happened at the St. Anne corner, how long ago is that?
Almost a year ago now. So my accident was on August 17th of 2020.
For some reason, it feels like a lot longer ago. I mean, as long as we've been following your story. And here we are a year later. Does it feel like forever for you, or does it feel like yesterday?
It's very mixed. I think my life has revolved so heavily around the accident with all the appointments, and recovery is a constant thing in my life, and every day we're focused on getting better from that accident. So I feel like I'm kind of stuck there. And then at other times I think back to when I was in my halo, and that feels like a year ago. So it's a very mixed sensation. And now that I'm coming up onto that year anniversary, it really feels like it was just yesterday, because I still remember everything, absolutely everything from that day. So
Wow. Now, here we are almost a year later. And I remember when you told the story initially, you talked about an angel that was in that vehicle with you the moment you prayed to not die alone, because you thought you were dying.
I really did. The pain was so severe, and I was trapped in my car, and I didn't know at the time that all the smoke and the dust was from the airbags. But I thought my car was on fire, and I tried my best to get out, but I couldn't. And I really thought that I was dying there.
Wow. So tell me about that moment that your angel entered the vehicle.
Well, there was just that moment when I tried the driver's side door, it was jammed shut. I tried to lean over, I couldn't even reach the passenger door, but the pain was just tearing me apart. And it's something that I'll never be able to describe in words, I don't think, to somebody else. But I kind of just looked up at what was left of my windshield and just prayed to my papa, please don't let me die alone in here. And as I said that, literally as I said that, John got in the back of my vehicle. I literally was just like, Papa, please don't let me die alone in here. And as I said that, he got into my vehicle. And I don't know if that was fate, if that was just, but you were exactly where you needed to be when you were that day. His voice is just so angelic, and he just very calmly said, hi, my name is John, I'm here to help. And there was this instant moment of okay, I'm not alone. Someone knows that I'm in here and I'm in good hands. I instantly felt like I was in good hands when he got in the back of my vehicle.
And he was the one that secured your neck. Is that correct?
Right. So he got behind my seat and kind of started stabilizing my neck. He kind of told me to stop moving. I was in so much pain from my lower back, I couldn't really try to keep all the pressure on my lower spine. So I kept trying to adjust myself, and he kept trying to calm me, say, you need to stop moving. You need to tell me what hurts, but you're okay, you're okay. And I remember at one point putting my hands up because I felt him holding me. And I remember thinking oh my goodness, this man has very large hands, but they felt like working hands. And something about that just reminded me of my own grandpa. And I'm just what? You're in so much shock, you have no idea what's going on. And I'm just okay, thank you. I remember just having this conscious thought, thank you, Papa. Thank you for sending me this person.
And you can't even see him. This is a guy behind you, this angel that has appeared, whose name is John. And you can't see his face, but you hear his voice, you feel his hands. And now there is something about John that was very significant in that he understood what needs to happen if you have a broken neck.
Correct. So he told me that actually the only reason that he knew to do this was he has first aid training through his job, but a few years prior, he was in a motorcycle accident and broke C1.
I had tears in my eyes for you because I remember I had, for 4 months, I was not allowed to move my head.
So he knew the importance of stabilizing my neck in that moment and what that would mean moving forward. And the amount I was moving around in there, it's for the best. Because if John hadn't done that, I wouldn't probably be doing this with you right now. So
what did your doctors say about John?
Early on, I was a learning moment. And so there were so many different residents and doctors that just came in just to see me, just because I was lucid and functional at a level I shouldn't be. And one of the doctors came in and just said, kid, I don't say this a lot, but you're a miracle. He's like, if you would have been left to keep moving around in your vehicle, he's like, it's just a miracle you didn't sever your spinal cord and completely tear through that artery. And if you ever get a hold of the person that, stabilized you, you thank them, because I'm sure that they saved your life.
Wow. So Angel John, what is his full name?
His name is John Hill.
So John Hill, how did you track this guy down?
It was when I finally came to in the hospital. I remember telling at this point, like, because of COVID, my mom, my dad, none of my family could be in there with me. It was just Ryan that was allowed to be there. So I was on a phone call, I think, with my mom, and I was just telling her, like, there was a man that got in my car. I'm sure a man got in my car. And at this point, again, you don't really know what really happened. I was still like coming out of all of that. And I'm like, I'm sure a man got in my car. I think he said his name was John, and I came up with a few other names, but then I was like, no, I think it's John. And they're like, well, can you remember anything else? Did he tell you anything else? I'm like, no, I have no idea. I don't even know if that's his name, but we just started calling him Angel John from that moment. And every time we would refer to him, it was always Angel. Oh, have you gotten a hold of Angel John yet? Do we know who he is? And I think my granny, my mom, and some of my other family members started this like Facebook phone tag tree thing to try to track down anyone who would have been there that day. So St. Anne, Steinbach, it's not a very big area. And so a few people, I think, got a hold of some other people and were like, oh, I think that this might be him. They got a hold of his daughter on Facebook. And when they finally found his daughter, I just gave them my number. I was like, let's not overwhelm him. Some people just want to help and they don't want to be involved after. And I don't want him to feel like he has to reach out, that he has to be a part of this if he doesn't want to. But I at least want him to know that I'm alive and that I'm doing as well as can be expected because of him. And so we just gave my number, and within a few minutes of that, he had texted me and just to like say, like, I'm glad, and don't, like, he right from the very start in that very first text message, he just said, don't stop fighting. And even when I finally got to meet him, that was a message that was just repeated over and over. He's like, I know that this was going to be a fight for you, but don't stop fighting. Don't stop fighting to recover, and don't give up. There's going to be hard days, but don't give up. And we kind of stayed in contact since then.
Wow. Okay. This is quite a story. This is incredible. So you were messaging with him for a while, but you couldn't meet up face to face for a while because of the pandemic. So what was the plan and how did you finally meet? Tell us about that moment.
So yeah, because of my recovery and because of COVID, we just couldn't get together. And it was 8 months to the day of the accident that we actually finally got, 11 months on the day that I got to meet him. It's almost a full year after. And we kind of just like set it up. I was like, well, do you just want to come over? First, my mom and my dad and my grandma, I really wanted them to meet him as well. Like, everyone wants to say thank you to this man. But I also, again, didn't want to overwhelm him. And I thought it would just be a better moment for something for just John, Ryan, and I to share. And so we made a nice brunch and we invited him over. And the moment that he came into my house, the same hello, he just said hello when he walked in that same voice that I remember getting into the back of my vehicle, and I started crying then already. And he is just such a wonderful person to be around. The moment he came up my stairs and I got to hug him, his smile lit up my entire room. And again, there's just something so calming to be around him. He is just such a genuinely good person. And I think that smile, finally seeing his face, and the hug is something that I will remember for the rest of my life.
Yeah. Wow. And what did you learn about John Hill, the person, not the angel, the person, when you got to know him on that day and visited with him? What did you guys talk about?
We talked about everything.
The accident, of course.
We did talk about the accident, which was actually good because he filled in a lot of the pieces that, when you're in that moment, you don't really know what you remember. If that really happened the way you thought you remembered it. So he filled in a lot of blank pieces for me. And that was a really good thing for me. It was really healing to be part of that, I think, with him. And then we just started talking about our lives, like what I had been up to before all of the accident, and him, like, again, just such a good person. We found out he used to do ballroom dancing. He donates blood plasma every 2 weeks. Like, he is just such a good person. He rode in on a motorcycle, and first I was like, someone's in our driveway. I don't know who this is. And Ryan was like, well, obviously it must be John. I was like, no, it's a motorcycle. Sure enough, though, he rode it on a Harley. And after we had breakfast and we went outside for some pictures, and I was just like looking at it, and it was just so ornate. And like he had pictures of like trucks, but he knew everything about these trucks that were painted on his Harley. And like he's been doing this for most of his life, it seems like. So it's just like he's lived such a, like an adventurous life, and it was so amazing to see him. And when when you hear, like, this is a perfect example, when you hear someone on the radio, you don't know what they look like, you can just imagine what their face looks like or what you think they look like, and normally it's never anything what they look like. When John walked in my house, he looked exactly like I had been picturing him. I had never seen John. There was a brief news clip done months ago where they showed his face, and that was the only little bit I'd seen of him. So when I finally got to see him, I'm like, this is exactly what I pictured you look like. I was like, but I don't know how, because the rear view mirror had cracked and it was falling off at my level. So how I would have ever seen what he looked like, I don't know, but he's exactly what I pictured him to look like. And it was just so lovely. It was just such an amazing part of my recovery. I think by far it was my best day in recovery so far.
So had he been following your journey, because we've been telling the story in the news, your story made news all over the place in many different medias. Had he been following your story knowing that's the girl I helped?
After I told John what the doctors had said, and he's just like, I had no idea the impact that I had on your story. I had no idea the impact I had on your life. He was like, when I finally got a hold of you after, he's like, obviously I wondered if you had even lived. He's like, I wondered for a few days before someone got a hold of me. He's like, and then I seen that there was a news, after we had talked, then there was a news story that Stand Back Online had done. And he was just like, well, that's got to be her. That's got to be the girl that I had saved. And I've been keeping him informed of my story, like moving forward. But yes, he says he's seen every news story that there's been done. He's following my progress. He doesn't have TikTok, but he has a friend, I guess, that sends him my TikTok to show him my recovery so far.
Now that you've met him, and you guys, I'm sure, are going to stay in touch forever, a lifelong friend with John, is there anything you'd like to add?
I just think that nobody ever expects to meet a real life hero. When you think of heroes, you're expecting someone in a cape to come and save you from the bad guys. No one ever expects to really meet heroes. And especially in this day and age, there's so much negativity in our world, I think, especially right now. And he is like this piece of good that I have in a terrible story. He is my positivity to this. And there's real life heroes out there. And that was a gift that most people never get in their lifetime, to really meet a hero. And I think it was hard for John to hear that he is a hero, but in every aspect of the word, he really is. And he saved my life that day. And no amount of thank yous or anything will ever be able to encompass what me and my family feel for him.
Well, Brianna, thank you so much for sharing your story. And I know your journey continues, but this was a shining moment in your journey. And thank you for sharing that with us.
No problem.